My name is Pam White. I'm a Vice President of Development with Madison Marquette in San Francisco. We are the owners of Bayfair Center in San Leandro, and I was here today to talk about potential innovation at Bayfair. Thank you. I work for Madison Marquette, and I started working on Bayfair about 2 years ago. And I realized, I looked at the property, which has been very successful and changed a great deal over the years. I'm sure most of you have shopped there, you're aware of kind of what's happened there. But along the theme of innovation, I said, we have to think differently. It's a different time. I started when the retail recession was just starting to come back up, but I challenged our team to think differently about Bayfair. So I've already started down that road. I'm not sure what we've accomplished yet, but I guarantee you everyone's thinking a little bit differently than they did a couple of years ago. Let me talk a little bit about the history, which I think, Bayfair has always been founded in innovation. You might not believe it by the way it looks right now or that it's retail, but it was founded in 1957. It was co-developed by Macy's and another developer, and it was one of the first West Coast shopping malls that was developed in the mid-50s. So it was innovative right then. And then it became a transit stop with the Bayfair BART station. So again, another innovation. So here we have a property that's been part of your community for over 50 years, but it was innovative back many years ago. So we've, over the years, it's been developed and changed by many, many, many folks. I have a lot of fun when I go back and look through all the documents and I see all the history and the folks who have owned it and what's happened. It curls my hair at times. I have a lot of things to deal with, and I'm sure Dave can appreciate all the complexities that we have to deal with, because we didn't develop the property, but we own it and we care for it and we want to continue to innovate. But real estate's very complicated, especially a property that's been around for 50-some years. So we've continued to look and study, and what can we do? Some folks enclosed the mall back years ago. About a month ago, our staff found somebody dropped off 2 boxfuls of historic photographs, and we were shocked. We had pictures of Mitch Miller when he spoke there, Willie Mays, and we were just dumbfounded by the pictures and inspired. Somebody at some point said, why can't we just take the roof back off and go back to the old days? But it's just not quite within the feasibility. So that is the realm that we're operating under right now. So go back to last year. About the middle of last year, we were in the middle of our budget season, and that's when we first heard about San Leandro, I think. And we said, great, let's budget $30,000, $40,000. Let's tie it in. So lo and behold, here we come to this year. And we got the contract. We said, great, let's sign us up, hook us up, let's go. So we are going to start. I don't know if our construction has started yet, but it will start very shortly. And then about maybe in February, I got kind of a random call from somebody saying, do you have some office space? And talked, and then I sat there and thought, we've got the second floor that's been vacant. It'll in my lifetime probably never be retail, and we recognize that, but we've thought about what to do up there. Can it be community space? What can we do to have that be an effective, usable space? So I said, we've got 47,000 square feet up there. And so we literally, to talk to this particular user, we hired an architect. We did a test fit because they needed 200 to 300 workstations and these things. So we hired an architect who has worked with a lot of tech companies. We did a layout. Came up with some ideas to enclose the mall, close the atrium and some of these types of things. And lo and behold, when we put this presentation together, we presented it to this particular user who had come out expecting to see, vampires and scary things and whatever. But as it turned out, they were really, really impressed. They were, Debbie was there, and they said how inspired they were, how impressed they were. And whether this makes sense for this particular tenant, I don't know. But I think it caused us to think we can look at things differently. We can innovate again. And so that's the track that we're going down. So what I'd like to do is show you the presentation that we put together and talk a little bit more about the ideas that we're thinking about going forward. And this is kind of an edited version, but I think it gives you an idea. So we said, okay, here's the space next to Macy's. You've got a parking field, you've got amenities, you've got BART, and you're walking distance to BART. How many other areas in the Bay Area have this kind of land and space available that's adjacent to BART and also really accessible to the freeway and to the airports? So laid it out in front of them. Here it is. Next slide. This is what was originally developed as the terrace level. For those of you who aren't familiar with what Bayfair was years ago, it was originally Macy's. There was a terrace level up here. There was a grocery store. I believe it was on the side that faces BART. There eventually became a Montgomery Ward's that was torn down and became Target. So there's been a number of things that have kind of happened over the years. But believe it or not, this was part of I believe this was part of the original structure that was built in the 50s. So this is what we were proposing is a single level, 35 to 45,000 square foot space, single user, though it can be multi-tenant. And this was our before slide. Next. So we said, okay, here you can have a dedicated tech modern entry. We may have taken a little bit of liberties with a little bit much glass, too much glass, but we said this can look different. And I joked, and Debbie and I have joked about this, that I think we have to acknowledge that certain communities have a branding challenge, I'll call it. So it doesn't, I would joke, and you could come here and get your, dialysis at the vid at the same time. But you have to address the branding issues up front. And that's why I've appreciated working with Debbie, because San Leandro is not going to become San Francisco overnight. But you have to be able to honestly deal with these issues. But we did a pretty picture and showed a courtyard and made it look like it could be in anywhere USA. Next slide. Walking in the space, did a lobby, showed conference rooms, modern amenities. Next. Another slide to show how it would feel walking into the space. If you walk in the space right now, and I'm sure many of you have, it's got pink tile, it's got green tile. It's not attractive. And when the gentleman that we presented to came out, I joked with him, I said, I just want to make sure that we get rid of the pink and green tile. And so, the next slide. Again, another, looks like a modern work environment. And again, I worked with a tech architect who's very familiar with all the tech users. And I challenged him at every step. I said, does this make sense? And he said, absolutely. He's working with Mozilla, who's actually going in a retail shopping center in Paris. And they're looking at places in Milpitas. So tech companies are looking for spaces that are not quite the norm for both the economy and to be near the workforce. So I challenged him at every step, and he said, yeah, it kind of makes sense. Next slide. So what is really a pretty chopped up space, and I should have brought a pointer, but the big space, the center court there, that's the atrium that we proposed enclosing in glass. We took out the escalator, but this shows how that kind of funky space upstairs actually works very well. There's neighborhoods, we've got collaboration spaces, we've got all the amenities, other than that we don't have the Golden Gate Bridge right out of our back door, as a lot of other spaces. And next, is there another one? Or so again, another image. This can be Bayfair. There's no reason why this can't work here. Next slide. All interior spaces. It can be colorful. It can be light. It can be fun. All the desired features that folks are seeing. And I want to make sure I make a point of what started the initial conversation with this potential user. They were looking at the East Bay because San Francisco is very expensive, not just from a real estate standpoint, but mostly from a labor standpoint. That was driving their decision. They were having to pay a lot more for the same labor pool to come to San Francisco and work versus being in the East Bay.
And it wasn't the real estate costs, but it was they wanted to be closer to their tech workers. And when I asked, I said, okay, where are your workers? They said Fremont, Dublin, Pleasanton, but primarily in the East Bay. So they have a more mature workforce. They want to be closer to where their families are. So I said, okay, well then great. You've got BART, you've got all these things here, and they acknowledge that there's a lot of attractiveness in terms of doing that. Now I don't know if this is going to work out with this particular tenant, but what it caused us to do is we're going to retain a broker. We're going to go out there and market the space as a 45,000 square foot single user tech space, and we're going to see what sticks. Now I don't know what's going to stick, but it's the innovation, it's the fiber, it's the collaboration of the various elements that are causing this to happen. And I agree that I talk, Deb and I have lots of fun, and we just spit these, we talk about what's the art of the possible. So today there's what's the Connected SF conference? Yeah, there's a conference in San Francisco. So we overnight put together a flyer. Is it the prettiest thing that we've ever done? No, but at least it gets the information out there, and I think that's the most important thing. So that's what, and again, at Bayfair, it's not what we can't do, but it's trying to just keep things moving and think about what can this be in terms of repurposing real estate, repurposing retail. And we think about that, maybe not every day, but it's front and center in all of our minds.
Great.
So.